Guess who's back? Back again. I don't know the rest of the words to that song. Hey everybody, what's up? I'm back. This is Red X Rain, coming at you, getting back to the Star Wars thing here, and my Let's Play every Star Wars game ever. And so yeah, here we are playing Star Wars, for the NES. Lot to catch up on. I guess I can talk a little bit about why I took a break. But let's focus on the games first and foremost. So, pretty standard par for the course now. You know, we've got the opening John Williams theme and everything. A lot of the same sort of stuff that we've seen by this point in Star Wars video games, kind of done a little bit to death. But you know, they're staying true to the relatively true to the source material here. Yeah, this game, so this version, I should say, of Star Wars for the NES came out in, for the Famicom it was November 15th, 1991. Obviously that's in Japan only. As far as the NES is concerned, the only release date I could ever really find is just November of 1991. That's not too unusual when it comes to NES games and release dates and stuff in the States. It wasn't nearly as, because there were so many markets and everything, it wasn't as well documented as the Japan releases. So we got that. Also staying true to the source material here, we have the opening shot of the movie. But then it does make a really quick sort of narrative jump, which I guess makes sense. There's, of course, R2 and 3PO getting to Tatooine, and then they just get us this through this little dialogue box that, okay, so Skywalker and Uncle Owen, they get these droids, and now we're kind of in the, even though I've seen Star Wars so many times, I always forget how long it actually takes. Like, it's good, but it takes a long time to kind of, like, get Luke introduced and, like, on his adventure and everything. So this is, like, the 30-minute mark of the movie or something like that. Alright, so here we got some gameplay. So, one thing I want to point out is that, obviously the game wants me to start here, but technically I can leave this cave, and we kind of have this, in the first third of the game, or half of the game here, we gotta have this overworld, if you will, kind of a hub world, kinda, sorta, for, 1991 standards. I could go to other caves anytime I want, but, I'm not gonna do that. There's a reason the game wants me to start here, because, as you can see, the pistol, whoops, did not mean to leave a second time, Luke's blaster, not pistol, shoots pretty slowly. So this is a pretty simple sort of first level, standard platforming stuff, standard platforming controls, left, right, jump, fire, that's about all we got. But there's no enemies in here. It's kind of a tricky jump, you get caught in the ceiling. But nothing too difficult. A little bit of timing here. There we go. Because of course this, I don't know, slime or whatever will hurt Luke, and I'm sure you can see there's a health bar up in the upper left-hand corner, which is a welcome change. Shoot. But yes, so here's the blaster upgrader. Now I can shoot way, way faster, and so that's something that you don't need, technically, to beat the game, but you totally freaking need it. So there's our exit. Okay, so now we can pretty much go wherever we want. Like I said, this kind of very forward thinking, I feel like, for its time, again, 1991, you can go anywhere you want within this sort of opening, Tatooine desert sort of stuff. And different people have different strategies, but I like to try and get the hardest stuff out of the way first. And for me, this is one of the harder areas. Also, we get to pick up R2, which is, I want to save R2 as quick as I can. So yes, this area will seem much more difficult than the first area, because it is. But again, that's how I kind of like to do it. I like to get this out of the way. So getting back to the release date of this, so yeah, 1991, November of 1991 for both Japan and the US, which is kind of an unusual, kind of an unusual thing. That a game would come out on both systems within like the same month. It was it was more standard. And by the way, whenever we see those up arrows, it's kind of like a vacuum tube, I guess, that just sort of automatically sucks you up. We'll see a lot of those later. But yeah, like some of the most sort of prominent games on the NES, like things like any Super Mario game. It would be like a couple of years in between each, or between the Japanese and American release. Why that is exactly, I've never been too sure, but it's a pretty widely established pattern. It wouldn't be until, much, much later. I mean, even the Super NES was very much the same way. We had to wait a while to get games that would originally come out on the Famicom or Super Famicom, as the case may be. And, I think sort of a common response to that, like why that is because, localization moved a lot slower. Shoot. Get some health, definitely need it. Like I said, this level's tricky. I guess I ended up on top, because again, I'm back where I was before, but I guess the health was worth it. There we go. So usually, people talk about, localization is the reason. Localization moved so much slower, translation and all that sort of stuff, so that's why, we would have to wait a couple years. But sometimes I don't buy that, because, like, the Super Mario Brothers games, at least in the early ones, not a lot of stuff to localize, really. Like, there's not, like, tons and tons of dialogue. Whereas this game, the game I'm playing right now, Star Wars for the NES, like, it has quite a bit. And I guess you could sort of make the argument that a decent number of it just kind of comes from the dialogue is kind of, maybe not always word for word, but more or less ripped sort of like from the film, so they didn't have to like think about the choices as much. They could just be like, by the way, you gotta get this extra life. Shoot. We're definitely not gonna go that way. There is an enemy over there, but it's an invincible enemy, and there's really nothing over there. It's just there to mess with you. So we don't need that. But I do need that. I need that health. Am I going the right way? I think I fell. I don't think I'm going the right way. Nope. I've definitely been here. Oh, also, there is, speaking of Mario Brothers, there's a little bit of Mario Brothers influence here. Not that Mario Brothers was the only game to do this, but, so holding B, causes Luke to run, which means then he can make longer jumps over, bigger, pits and that sort of thing. Very much like Mario. Where am I going? Oh, this has got to be it. Shoot. Should I go? Shoot. Oh, God. Okay, great. Well, I think I'm almost at the end, though, and I don't think there's many enemies up here. I think it's all just this kind of stuff. Let's see. Oh, okay. And we just gotta make a... And there's an enemy up here somewhere? Old Jawa? No? This game sort of does a weird thing. Sometimes, especially here in the Sandcrawler level, sometimes enemies, if you walk slowly enough, they never show up. And there's R2. There we go. Perfect. Yeah, I guess that's more or less a line taken right from the film, so I guess localization wasn't a big deal. And also, as I understand it, and this is pretty standard, I think even, maybe not so much today, I think stuff maybe gets dubbed today, I don't know, I'm not an expert on that sort of stuff, but like when Star Wars came out, like across the world, like it was just like in English, right? Like English movies, if they're popular enough, they just release them in, they don't dub everything, especially like in the 70s and the 80s, right? So I guess Japanese audiences, maybe even, you know what, now that I think about it, I wouldn't be surprised if the Famicom version of this game has all the dialogue in English already. I'm not going to go on record and say that that's true because I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised if that's true. So, I mean, I guess that explains why it could come out in the same month. No. But even thinking about that... Oh, so here we are in another cave level, and so this is the first cave level that actually has, like, enemies and well, I mean, I guess the first one had the slime dripping and stuff, right? But this one's much more of a challenge. Much more of a challenge. It's a very difficult, one of the more difficult cave areas. Pretty much everything else here in Tatooine is like this cave stuff. Let's see if I can get this. Because it's a very short amount of space to run, but you gotta run to make that jump. There we go. So yeah, 1991. You know, I was looking more into, like, as I like to do, looking into like history and stuff, and I was like, man, 91. That's I mean, that is pretty late for an NES game. I know there were, you know, others. You know, for example, like well, the first game I ever did a Let's Play of, Kirby's Adventure, came out in 93? By the way, these guys are terrible, because, yep, they'll do that. They'll just bump you into the spikes. It's not so much that they'll hurt you as much as they tend to... Oh, shoot. Speaking of hurting you... Okay, I think I'm back to where I was. Gotta deal with these flies. Let's see if I can get this one right when I land this time. I think I have to go down there. I was hoping it would show up so that if I did get hurt, I could get... There we go. Okay. Alright, that wasn't too bad. There's these enemies, which I don't know what those are supposed to be. This game, like I said, plays pretty true to the source material. But I don't know what those are supposed to be. They don't look like anything. I mean, I guess I don't remember giant flies, and I don't remember, like, these... There's, like, worms and stuff in here. Oh, by the way, you can sort of see there's a weird texture to the wall over there, where I just shot. If you want, you can go over there, and I think there's an extra life and some health. But there's also one of those unnamed green alien dudes there that, maybe I just suck at fighting them, but I end up just losing a life or losing the same amount of health when I go over there. But, you know, a little bit of a secret, I guess. I think there's one of those guys right down here. I can hear myself hitting them. There we go. Well, that wasn't too bad. There's health up there, and of course there's the exit, but I don't actually want to go to the exit, because that's not really actually the point of these levels. Going into all these caves. Now, at least this guy, obviously, is a Tusken Raider, or one of the Sand People. And boy, if you don't take them out, they are rough. But usually the game places them in spots where you can kind of like hide, like here, and just shoot them, and they're really easy targets. But if you run into them, I mean, you bump into them once and you're pretty much dead. Now this guy's the worst because he keeps walking back and forth, so I can't get up on that ledge and just do like a continuous shot. Oh, I did. Wow. Well, I am just making myself out to be a liar, I guess, all over the place. So what I just picked up there were shields for the Millennium Falcon. Now, we don't have the Falcon yet, but that's really the point of going into these caves, is that each cave has at least one, obviously here there were two, shields, which don't do anything for us now, but they will help us immensely later in the game. So that's really what we're on the sort of quest for here. The game doesn't tell you that, but yeah, that's basically what we're doing here. So there's an element of completionism, I guess, which is good for me. Being a completionist, I'm going to try and find all of the Millennium Falcon shield pieces, because I think I've found them all. But I think the only place you actually have to go is to the Sandcrawler to rescue R2-D2, and then I think technically you could probably, if you wanted to, move on to the next onto the next area of the game. But it's very foolish. I think you should at least try and get... Ah, crap. Oh, jeez. Oh, boy. Okay. Oh, and system slowdown. There we go. Well, I mean, I guess I bypassed some stuff by falling down that pit. Also, there's fall damage here. Don't know if that came across, but yes, there is fall damage. These are another sort of thing. I'm not quite sure what they're supposed to be. I don't remember anything like this in Star Wars. If I could just get him to... Ah, shoot. I was hoping he would just run off the edge or something. And another fun blind jump. Long jump, of course. So yeah, what was I saying? Oh, I was saying, like, yeah, like, release dates and everything. So yeah, 91, a little bit late, sort of, in the system's life. There we go, we got another, that's shorter than I thought, piece of the shield there. But the reason I keep thinking about 91, is that, you know, it's really weird now to think that, okay, so the Famicom is released in Japan in 83, right? Yes, 83, and the NES is released in America in 95. Or 85. 83 and 85. Did I say 83 or 93? 83 and 85. And so I don't know, it's always weird to me, I guess, in a way, that, oh, and here we go, just gotta run over here. Thankfully, enemies do not respawn. Once they're dead in this game. Did I get them? Oh, I guess I did. That, or it was one of those weird glitch things where I walked slowly enough that it, you know, just didn't come back. I don't know. But yeah, I don't know, it's just weird to think that, like, so, you know, if we go by the Famicom's dates, for sure, you know, Famicom coming out in 83, this game coming out in 91, that's 8 years, and the NES was arguably still a relevant, system, which, again, for me is just weird to think about, because the Super NES came out in 1990, well, Super Famicom 1990, Super NES 91, So, I mean, just think about that, like, that's just, I mean, I know there's always crossover, right, between, like, generations and platforms and everything, but the Super NES was already out at this point, at least, it was already out for, like, a year in Japan, so, you know, they're still continuing to develop games, and that would continue for, like, a couple more years. Like I said, Kirby's Adventure comes out in 93, so the Super NES had already been out for, like, even in America, 2 years, for Japan, 3 years. And I think Kirby's Adventure was... I don't think it was the last game, but right, it was one of the last games developed for the NES. I think... We didn't get it here, but Wario's Woods came out in 94? I think? So, I mean, definitely, you know, they weren't chugging out the games like they were when they just had the NES, but I don't know, that's such a weird... Like, a 3-year... Like, even playing conservatively, like a 3-year crossover between... generations of a console is just bizarre, I think, by today's standards. Speaking of release dates and stuff, I guess I should talk about, because it is pretty interesting, the sort of some of the people kind of behind this game. So as far as Japan was concerned, it was released by Victor Interactive, VIC, Victor Interactive Software. I think they went by a couple different names, and they were strictly a video game publisher. I think they might still be around. I'm pretty sure they are, because now they're in charge of the Story of Seasons series of games, which now I'm not I think I dabbled in it a little bit, but I'm not a huge I shouldn't say that I'm not a huge fan of Harvest Moon, as if I think it's like something bad. Like, it's a really important like series of games. I've just never, and I like micromanagement and slow life games. I feel like I've never given, I don't know, I guess I've never given Harvest Moon like a long enough of a chance to like really be into like knowing it like fully as a series. So maybe someone in the comments can explain this a little bit better than me, because I tried to read up on it, and I was like, I don't understand that that Story of Seasons is kind of like the new name for Harvest Moon, because the original company that owns the rights to Harvest Moon won't let this new company have it, or something like that. Like, because Victor Interactive Software didn't develop the original Harvest Moon, but they wanted to make Harvest Moon games, but the company that does own Harvest Moon, the name, won't let them have the name? Or something like that. So, but anyway, they're kind of like the new Harvest Moon company, and a couple other games. I think they're more widely known strictly in Japan, but again, I could just be not familiar enough with them. But as far as the US is concerned, it was actually released by JVC, which I didn't know this. I was definitely familiar with JVC because I think they were definitely a big, and I think they're still around, but they were a big TV company in like in the 90s. I'm sure my family must have owned at least one JVC television, because they were right up there with like Zenith and what was the other one in the 90s? I don't think Panasonic was releasing TVs in the 90s. Maybe they were, but JVC was like known in the States anyway for producing like... Oh, by the way, there's another one of those weird walls where there's like a secret, but I don't think it's really worth it. You can kind of see it in the coloration up there. Because there's like a pit you can fall down, and the fall damage here is so unrelenting. And I think there's actually spikes at the bottom, so if you were to not time this weird jump in this very blocky, hidden area, you pretty much die instantly. So yeah, JVC. I was very. I didn't know that they actually published video games, but they did. They published this game, Star Wars, for the NES, here in the U.S. But I don't know how often they did that, because they weren't strictly a video game publisher. They did a lot more like electronic sort of stuff, like TVs. I think they made like the first TVs in Japan, like the first like commercially available, like everybody had it kind of thing in Japan. And they but their big claim to fame was actually like they developed the first technology. They pretty much developed VHS players and tapes and everything. So that was like their big claim to fame. So really more of an electronics company and that sort of thing. Not so much. I mean, video games are electronics, but you know, not like appliances, I guess. That was the word I was trying to think of. More like electronic appliances. And if you're big into like me, if you're big into like records and like vinyl records and stuff, they also developed quadraphonic sound and records. Oh, by the way, here's old Ben. Oh, I guess, you know what, this is probably the other thing you have to do before you can move on to the next part. Maybe you don't have to rescue R2. I don't know, I'm a completionist anyway, so I'm gonna go to everything anyway and get everything. But maybe you have to get R2 and you have to... that would make sense, like you have to meet Obi-Wan. Yeah. But yeah, so, yeah, JVC, quadraphonic sound, basically an attempt to make vinyl sound even better, because, like, vinyl is based on either mono or stereo sound, which is, like, 1 or 2 channels, but quadraphonic, as the quad implies, it's an attempt to basically make, like, 4-channel sound. So sometimes if you ever go to a record store and you see quadraphonic at the top, I think the Beatles' Abbey Road was like the biggest selling quadraphonic album, and then the Who's Quadrophenia is, I think, named after that idea. It's recorded that way or mastered that way. Pretty sure Pink Floyd's Dark Side of the Moon, there's also a quadraphonic sound version. And here I am running into stupid stuff, because I'm getting into, this is turning into a more of a discussion of vinyl records. But this seems like a pretty natural sort of stopping point, because now we're done with the Tatooine sort of desert area. Oh man, listen to that awesome music. Kind of a cool like remix of like the Cantina theme. I'll talk more about the music and stuff next time in some sort of development stuff, because there's a lot of interesting names sort of connected to this. But again, this is a great breaking point, so I'm going to take a break. So as always, thanks for watching. Please like, please comment, please subscribe. I do always appreciate it. And I'll see you guys next time. Bye.